marketplace kind of knows we have 13 lit exchanges and we have 45, 50, I don't know, dark pools. And so the question is, what are we actually trying to get at when we create all these different entities? Certainly everybody's trying to match flow up and everybody's trying to make revenue from trading. But the question is, what does this really mean in kind of a more macro picture? And with me to discuss this segmentation issue is Rich Steiner, liaison of government affairs, corporate and government affairs for RBC Capital Markets. And Rich is, of course, many people know, very involved with equities market structure. And so I guess the question, Rich, is are all of these pools and all of these entities, and to a certain extent pricing mechanisms, a way of segmenting flow? And kind of market theory teaches us that really kind of orders do better when they're all kind of interacting together. Is breaking apart all this flow actually good?
It's a great question, and one that I suppose the data will bear out whether it's beneficial or not over time. But market participants continuing to try and differentiate themselves as well as to profit are trying to basically segment away the flow that is most profitable to them. The downside to that is, of course, if you're the one who's not segmented in favor of, you're potentially disenfranchised, which then kind of furthers the progression, and you say, hey, I want to build my own segment, I want to be catered to. Again, the upside is that those who are being segmented to, say retail liquidity for instance, find tighter markets and potentially more liquid markets. Those who, again, want to interact with those counterparties then are, if you will, stripped away. And
boxed out of that.
Yeah, and that's the downside. Question is it more beneficial on balance to have segmentation, or are there more people who are losing as a result of segmentation as a result?
Well, that's I guess the $64,000 question. But let's talk about some of the different segmentation strategies we're seeing. Certainly, we saw the NYSE and some of the exchanges develop retail liquidity programs, but now they're doing something new. Why don't you tell us about this new platform that the NYSE is starting or just announced?
Yeah, so the New York Stock Exchange has proposed an ILP, an institutional liquidity program, trying to segment larger orders from institutions to trade on exchange. So you're talking about parent orders that are 5,000 shares or greater. So an institution sends an order of 5,000 shares or greater to the broker, and at that point the broker can then send child slices at any size to the exchange, so long as there's a 5,000 share parent order off, and then it will be certain advantages to it, certain additional rules that will again help segment that institutional flow.
Also, me as the broker, I have to say that this is a bona fide institutional order. I guess kind of the same way they do this as a bona fide retail order to take advantage of RLP.
Yeah, we'll see how the attestation works if it is in fact an attestation, but as it stands right now, it's any order of 5,000 shares or greater, not definitively somebody labeled as an institution.
Now this kind of comes on the heels of kind of the announcement of ILX, or IEX, which is kind of a spin-off of some of the guys from your old shop, or from your shop, from Royal Bank Canada. Now they're in the market, they're trying to do kind of the same thing. So is the institutional segment, because that we think of that as kind of, they're all kind of somewhat going the same way. Is that big enough a segment, or is that diversified enough of a segment to kind of create a segment off of?
It's a good question, and the nice thing about what we're discussing here today are these are all industry initiatives. And at the end of the day, the marketplace will vote, and we'll look at the data and we'll see what the outcomes are. It's not a regulatory or a legislative solution, which I think most of us would say is a positive. The institutional marketplace is certainly large enough as it relates to assets, the many trillions of dollars under management in U.S. equity alone. The question is, though, are there strategies so similar that they need other participants to basically grease the gears? Other market
diversified strategies, whatever.
Right, and we'll see. The New York Stock Exchange has a pretty diverse set of market participants, and the ILP program will interact with the book, which is a differentiator between the RLP program. So it will probably find multiple participants, and we'll see how that pans out.
Do you see this as a way of trying to get more? Certainly, I assume the New York sees this as a way of kind of trying to get more flow onto the New York and kind of taking flow out of the dark pools. Also, I guess to a certain extent, pricing mechanisms. And talk about the New York one. And I guess I hate to corner you all just about the New York, but one of the things that Jeff Sprecker's been talking about is trying to get rid of the rebate structure, and I think the rebate structure to a certain extent is a way of trying to segment order flow as well, with reverse markets and different price tiers and things like that.
Agreed. We've been very vocal in our concern over rebates in the industry as a whole across all venues, thinking that it clearly adds conflicts and opaqueness to the entire process, which also adds more complexity, which then increases systemic risks and further segmentation to the extent that that could potentially be problematic. So we'll have to see what the New York Stock Exchange is able to accomplish. We certainly are supportive of it, and we're appreciative of the thought leadership that we think the New York Stock Exchange is showing towards this. Our constituents, the institutional community, has been supportive of this, so hopefully it gains traction, and IEX is again going down that road and not offering rebates. And so it does seem that both, at least as it relates to the New York Stock Exchange and IEX, there is being more attention paid towards the buy side, and at least certainly in IEX's case, not providing rebates, and in the New York Stock Exchange, bringing to the table a discussion about potentially reducing access fees or eliminating rebates altogether. So an interesting time to see what develops, and again, the positive is, we're supportive of it and their industry initiatives.
So I guess, last thing I want to ask, so with all this segmentation, is this good segmentation, bad segmentation, or just, segmentation? Because to a certain extent, the more segments you have, the more complexity you wind up adding, and then you think, okay, well, I can interact with this, but I can't interact with that, and he can interact with this, and got to go there, and here I got to go there. It's like trying to keep track of this kind of sets you up for just more routing strategies and, infrastructure. On the other hand, it makes sense to do more of this at the exchange, and well, I guess dark pool operators will disagree, but to a certain extent, the segmentation within the exchange kind of makes a little bit more sense than kind of having, adding another 12 dark pools. But how do you think this plays out?
It seems likely that we're going to continue to see more segmentation. A number of market participants want it. Now you're starting to see other venues look at it on the exchange side as a way to compete against the dark pools and the purported segmentation that exists within the pool. So as we've seen off-exchange volume continue to increase to near 40% overall, about 15% in dark pools alone, we're starting to see, again, a strong motivation by the exchanges to compete for that flow. So we would be, not to necessarily be prognosticators, but we would expect this trend to continue.
So there you have it, TABB Forum viewers. More competition in the marketplace, a little bit more complexity, but some different models that may actually, benefit institutional investors. And with me discussing that is Rich Steiner, Head of Corporate and Governmental Affairs at Royal Bank of Canada Capital Markets, RBC Capital Markets, and thanks for viewing.
Thanks, Larry.